Hello again. This is actually the 19th. We said it was the 18th in the previous one.
We did. We were wrong.
We were, but it is the 19th. Time's running away with us.
It is.
Of October 2025.
It is. That's very true. Yeah.
And we finished our chips.
They were very nice.
They were lovely.
Very, very nice.
And we've come home and it's still raining.
It is still raining.
It is still
yes.
raining.
Yeah, it was a bit of an al fresco video before, wasn't it?
It was. Well, yeah. we had a roof.
Yes, we had a roof.
So we didn't get too wet.
Yeah, but very nice, wasn't it?
It was delicious. Mm. Yes, very
good,
nice.
Good.
Nice to have a place for a change.
Yeah, not many. No pun intended. Not many places seem to do it. Hey, see, it seems to be mainly sort of standard kind of haddock and cod at most places, doesn't it? And you don't tend to get much variety. But yeah, very good stuff actually.
Yeah, it's a nice change, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So what are we discussing? We were discussing spiritual matters, weren't we?
Yes, we were. We were discussing spiritual sort of matters.
Yes.
Yeah, I've no idea whether there's a sort of correlation between sort of neurodivergence and sort of religiosity. I've no idea whether anyone's ever done into sort of studies on this. I mean, I've personally sort of met people who are on the spectrum who sort of are in both camps, really. You know, ones that are very vociferously, yes, there's a God, and ones that are very kind of, or else they're into some sort of, spiritual practice of some sort. And others that are very kind of like, I suppose what philosophers would call materialists. Not materialistic, but in the sense of, no, there's this world and there isn't anything else. I
can imagine it's one of those things that can go hard either way.
Yeah, I think so. Because I know some people who sort of, on the spectrum, it's not necessarily like a trait necessarily, but I know like there's a sort of stereotype of the sort of the kind of sciencey types that are lacking in social skills or whatever in some areas. You might sort of have that kind of sort of view, but at the same time you do kind of wonder if there's kind of another aspect to it as well, that you do get, as I say, people who are very sort of open to that kind of thing. I mean,
yeah, you can see how someone could, start spinning on religion, couldn't you? Because it has so many aspects to it. The history and
very much
philosophy, and the cultural aspects of it, and you can see how someone could get very into that, and it'd be an endless.
Yeah, because I mean, it truly is a bottomless thing.
Endless
isn't it?
Subject.
Yeah.
Of study.
I mean, I've often sort of said, like, I don't know about you, but when people have sort of asked me in a roundabout way what spins have I sort of had, some of it sounds a little bit sort of pretentious because it's such broad subjects that, I mean, one of the things I've been interested in for years, I guess, is what might be termed sort of philosophy in the sense of the history of thought. I read Sophie's World, which is a really good novel I'd recommend, when I was in my sort of mid-20s. I wish I'd read it sooner, and it sort of opened my eyes to kind of like the way that mankind has sort of thought about these things over time. And a lot of that is sort of to do with, is there a God? If so, what kind of a God are we talking about?
Yeah.
But trying to sort of summarise that in a sort of way that kind of makes sense as an actual spin is a bit hard, because it's a bit like saying, oh, I'm interested in creative stuff. Well, what kind of creative stuff? What we're talking about? We're talking about painting, drawing, filmmaking, music, book writing. What's the thing?
And finding something interesting as a subject of study isn't necessarily the same as actually believing it.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. Like I read the entire Bible when I was 16 because...
Very impressive, by the way.
I wanted to know what it was about.
Yeah.
There were things that I'd heard of that were in the Bible that I wanted to sort of fully understand what these concepts were, who these characters were, what these stories were like in their original form. So I read the Bible, and I didn't believe any of it. I didn't come away a Christian or anything.
Yeah.
But I came away knowing more about, the Bible as a cultural source.
Yeah. It was like almost like quite a traditional sort of deep dive into something.
It was,
yeah. And I think that sort of tends to be how we kind of approach things, isn't it? It's very kind of all or nothing a lot of the time. We want to sort of find out about everything about it. And something like the Bible is a great example, because it's such an enormous thing. it's quite a lengthy book anyway. It's a compilation of lots of different stuff by different writers.
And been quite popular and influential over the years.
Absolutely. But in a sort of sense, you can. I mean, it sounds a bit sort of frivolous to say this, but it's almost a bit like sort of people having a spin on something like Lord of the Rings, isn't it? In the sense that or perhaps like other epic works, like if somebody had a spin on Greek literature and they're into like the Odyssey or the Iliad or something, because there's such lengthy works with so many characters in them, and there's all manner of things in it, different sort of flavours of style of writing.
And there's so many interpretations of it that you can read about as well, and
so if it's a spin,
elaborations on it and so on.
Yeah, so if it's a sort of spin that you kind of that you're after, you do wonder, don't you? I do wonder sometimes as well whether some people who kind of go into a career in the church, whether it might actually be a good environment for people who are neurodivergent. I know there's a sort of stereotype of the slightly eccentric vicar kind of thing, but I do wonder sometimes. And monks, monks are a good example. Yeah. Monks are a good example.
Like people who go into these orders where there's a lot of seclusion and silences and so on. I mean that I can't imagine that appealing to the average neurotypical particularly.
No, I don't think it would, and also being very hyper focused on certain things. Particularly, let's say if there were particular activities in a monastery that you found you had a bit of a thing for, like back in the day, for example, when they used to sort of copy out books or something.
Writing the illuminated letters.
Yeah, if you found that you enjoyed this anyway, and you had a talent for it, and you had an interest in it, and it was a spin, let's say. We don't tend to think of medieval people being autistic, but obviously there have always been autistic people.
Obviously.
That's a whole other topic of all the epidemic sort of thing. But if you think about it, it's not difficult to imagine that the autistic of, say, the year 1300 or something, being in some monastery somewhere and basically copying out text from the Bible or something and being perfectly happy to do that because it's repetition and it sort of feeds into something you're interested in. I definitely think you're right about the whole sort of research thing. I mean, your approach to it actually is very classically autistic, isn't it? Because essentially what you did by reading it and doing as you did, it's an intellectual thing, isn't it?
It was.
A very intellectual
a
thing.
Study.
A study.
It was a study into, the history and culture.
Yeah. And essentially what you were sort of doing, you weren't sort of looking for spiritual solace or something.
Yeah.
You were looking for comprehension, you were looking for understanding. To try and sort of wrap your head around some of the ideas that are there.
I did kind of have the idea that it might, have some sort of spiritual wisdom in it that I would find interesting, but maybe because I didn't actually go into it looking for something to believe in.
Yeah.
I didn't actually see any of that. I didn't look on it as any kind of literal truth.
Yeah.
I didn't find anything that really struck a chord with me.
Yeah, I mean, I've sort of had that with I mean, I went through a phase of sort of reading a lot of philosophy stuff, and particularly like I tried to read sort of original works by different writers, and some of them I got on with more than others. But I have to confess that even some of the ones that I quite liked. I mean, I remember reading Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, for example, and thinking that was quite a nice sort of book. It was not too long, and it was quite practical and so on. But I didn't come away thinking, oh, gee, Stoics had all the answers. Stoicism is great. It was more like there are bits of this that make sense. There are bits of it that are okay. There are bits of it that are not so much really. Doesn't really apply much anymore. But I do wonder sometimes, though, having said that, if as autistic people, because I think we often sort of struggle to kind of formulate responses to things, how are we supposed to feel about this? I think very often we do tend to sort of think of things in terms of stuff that we've interacted with. Like there's been occasions where I haven't been able to find the words to respond to something, so I've kind of, my head has thought, oh, there's a bit of film dialogue, maybe this would do, or there's a line I remember from a book, maybe this would do, or it can be more eloquent than I can, or more relevant than I can.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe, you know, maybe the Bible as a spin in that sense is quite natural for a lot of people, I guess. Or similar works, you know, that you can sort of get something from, even if you don't end up as a full believer.
Yeah. You know, because it has this weight to it, you know, for thousands of thousands of years, people have taken it as truth, as history.
Yeah.
You know, maybe that is something that a lot of people find appealing as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Because it is a greatly respected work of writing.
And it's obviously meant a lot to a lot of people over the years. And
it's been inspiration for so much art and
it's very so and it's very varied as well, actually. My partner's a Christian. I personally am not, but I know she's been on sort of, you know, her church has done various study groups and things, and sometimes she's sort of shown me the materials from it, and I have to say some of it is actually quite interesting. I remember her showing me one for, I think it's the one called Song of Songs, I think it's called, or Songs of Solomon, I think it's, and it's almost like poetry, actually. A lot of that stuff.
It's a romance.
It's a romance poetry. Yeah, some of it's almost erotic, actually, in places. Maybe that's a bit blasphemous to say so, but
my breasts are like towers.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Yes.
And I remember sort of thinking, oh, okay. I mean, you know, I didn't know it was like this. And
your body is a tree, and your breasts are the fruit. Let me climb the tree and grasp the fruit. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, but I remember actually digging out a copy of the Bible and actually having a flick through this particular book myself and thinking, oh, okay, I didn't know about this. That's actually quite interesting.
What's that doing in the Bible?
What's that doing there? Yeah, or
this isn't about God.
I remember. I mean, unlike you, I haven't read the whole thing, but there are some books I have read in their entirety, and I remember as a teenager reading Revelations, and although, you know, it's kind of you know, people sort of say about it being sort of what's the term? A lot of it's very heavily symbolic, isn't it? And it was written by people who were convinced that the end of the world was imminent because they thought that sort of the Roman Empire was kind of, you know, on its last legs and it was going to fall, and, you know, Nero was identified with the Antichrist and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, aside from that, I have to say it's a very remarkable thing, really. You know, when you look at all the sort of stuff that goes on in it, it's very, very densely packed, shall we say, with lots of sort of striking imagery. I mean, I think it's one of those sort of things, maybe, that even if you've sort of no interest in exploring it beyond a very superficial level, I think it's interesting just to sort of at least have a bit of a look through it at some point in your life, just to sort of have it there in your mental storehouse of things. In a way. And
phrases that become part of the language. Yeah. You know, like in Shakespeare.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say comparable in that sense to Shakespeare or to other sort of great art, I suppose. I mean, to my embarrassment, I've never actually read the Odyssey all the way through. I do own a copy. I've read a lot of it, but I've never read the full thing.
I've not read it.
But I'm familiar with the sort of the main episodes in it. Like if somebody said to me, oh, you know, the Sirens, or, you know, Scylla and Charybdis or something, I recognise these things. I think because we're the sort of people who tend to sort of store kind of knowledge, and some of us have kind of museum-like minds, and we tend to sort of organise kind of things. I'm trying to avoid sort of saying, oh, it's good for you. You should it does you good or something. It's like, you know, saying, oh, eat your broccoli stalks or something. But I do think the great works of sort of religion, philosophy, etc., are worth looking into, and you can certainly see why, you know, people might have a spin about them. Definitely.
And if you are in a religious family, or you're of that kind of mindset, then, you know, obviously these things are you know, seen as virtues. Yeah. You know, studying the Bible is sort of seen as a virtue in itself in Christianity, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and having a sort of an interest in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you do sort of wonder with I mean, you do kind of wonder really where there's certain bits of sort of religious text tend to sort of land more with people if they can sort of identify with them from their own experiences. But what I tended to find when I was sort of reading bits of it was that the more abstract stuff actually got me more. So, for example, I read all of Genesis. I've not read all the Old Testament, but I've read Genesis, and there were bits of it that I just remember thinking, "Whoa, that's really cool." You know, like
it's just interesting stories.
It's just interesting stories, yeah.
Like you can see how Noah's Ark came to be a popular children's story. It's been, remade over and over again.
Yeah.
In little picture books and things, because it's an interesting story.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I have a friend who introduced me to years and years ago, because I have an interest in history. It's always been one of my sort of spins, and again, it's quite a broad thing. I remember one of my friends telling me about the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is like one of the, I think it might even be the oldest extant work of fiction. It might be Babylonian or Mesopotamian, somebody can tell me anyway. But what's interesting about it is that it contains a section where basically the gods get angry with mankind and they send a flood and all this, that and the other. And there's a guy called Utnapishtim or something, they all have very kind of like catchy names, who essentially is like what you might term a sort of Noah figure, who the gods spare. He's like a righteous man that they sort of spare. So this kind of concept of this sort of trope, as it were, of one person survive. It's very interesting seeing that that's replicated elsewhere, and I think if you're quite curious about the origin of stories,
in the Aboriginal tradition, there's a story about the sea rises and kills off a lot of people.
Yeah, and absolutely, yeah. No, I was aware. I think that there is sort of similar stories in other traditions which kind of have this, and it's quite interesting, I think, that because we're often people who, I mean, it's not strictly an autistic trait, but because we don't tend to sort of just blindly follow necessarily, we tend to be sort of people who ask questions.
This is not logical.
Yeah, this is not logical. I think sort of finding
your religion is not logical.
Yeah, finding sort of parallels in other things, it is just quite interesting in and of itself, I think.
Yeah. And finding what this comes from. Why does this appeal to people?
Yeah.
Why do they want to believe this?
That is very hard to understand sometimes, I think. Or perhaps it isn't. I mean, it's superficially sort of easy to understand maybe in some ways, but then when you actually get into it, it's quite complicated. I mean, as a sort of parallel, for example, I personally have absolutely no interest in football. I genuinely couldn't care less about it.
Yeah.
I've sometimes been accused of hating football. I don't hate football. I'm not interested in it.
You're just completely indifferent.
I'm indifferent.
It happens to other people.
It happens to other people.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Not to me.
I would make the argument that I think the amount of time and resources that are spent upon it might better be spent on other things. But if I ever came to power, not that that's ever likely to happen, I wouldn't want to anyway, but just hypothetically if I did, I wouldn't ban it. I wouldn't get rid of it or something. I don't hate it. But the sort of the almost kind of tribal sort of connections that people seem to have to it is just utterly beyond me. And I can kind of understand to some extent that, humans do tend to be a bit sort of tribalistic in their thinking. We can all do it. You tend to sort of band together. Them and us sort of thing. But yeah, beyond that, it just really, really baffles me. I mean, I know it's not a perfect parallel for religion, but I know some people have sort of made the point of, when there's lots of you together and you're all singing and chanting and, like somebody scores or something. I don't know. I mean, end of the day, there are plenty of autistic people into football. Many autistic people are into sport in general, or religion. But I do think that sort of experience, although it's not specifically an autistic thing, I think the experience of being on the outside of something and looking in and feeling like I don't get why these people are doing these things, they don't make sense to me. And it's not that I'm trying to be deliberately difficult. I'm not trying to sort of be a troublemaker or kind of stir up problems or something. I just genuinely don't understand. It baffles me. I don't know about you, but something that has been a recurring theme in my life ever since I've become aware of it, actually, the number of times in my life I just want to say, I don't know how to feel about this.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to feel about this?
And it takes some time to really sit and think about it and decide, right, I should have been angry, but it's a bit late now.
Yeah.
So I'll just not care.
Yeah. And, I mean, for example, I don't want to labour the point, but, like, if you look at sort of, like, the kind of, a lot of the sort of the religions that have some concept of an afterlife, even if I actually thought that it was an actual thing and I believed in it, I'm not sure I would feel comfortable with the idea anyway.
Yeah.
Because what happens in the afterlife? I mean, do I meet all of my ancestors? Do I? I mean, I've got, you know, like, how many sets of great-great-great-great-grandparents do I have? And I didn't know any of them. So are they all going to be there? Am I going to get some...
Well, you've got eternity to meet them.
Yeah, but do you know what I mean? Am I going to have some fisherman from 1850 come up and go, all right, son, I'm your great-great something grandfather. And I'm like, oh, nice to meet you, old bearded guy. Hi. You know, I don't know. To me, it just, conceptually, it just doesn't sit right. And I think what I'm trying to sort of extract specifically from the religious conversation, I think, is if it doesn't sort of sit right or feel right, I think it causes us a lot of issues. It's not specifically an autistic trait, but I do think it's one we often fall into. Putting it simply, I think we don't tend to do groupthink. Whether it's politics or religion or other things. You know, like if you're in a club sort of thing, you want to kind of feel like you're in the right club.
Yes. You don't want to keep thinking, why am I supposed to be doing this?
Yeah.
Who are these people?
Yeah, this doesn't...
I don't know them.
Yeah.
They're not my friends.
Yeah. And I think also the whole sort of like, oh, it is because it is kind of thing, that really doesn't sit well with a lot of us, I think. The number of anecdotal stories I've heard over the years of people who've sort of found themselves in hot water at work or, you know, like in social situations because everybody else has done something and they've been expected to do it as well. And they've been like, well, no, because you haven't really given me a sufficient reason for doing it.
Yeah, I didn't realise that we were supposed to be doing this.
Yeah, no, like, well,
instructions unclear.
It's like, come on, everybody else has. Well, everybody else has isn't really a very good reason, is it?
No.
You know, I mean, there may well be a good reason for doing it, but as yet...
Instructions unclear, did not attend party.
Yeah, as yet you have not sufficiently demonstrated this. I don't know, I mean, I think I mentioned this last time, but I went to a Christmas party at work, and although I don't sort of regret going in the sense that it was my choice, and all that, what I did find was that after I'd sort of been, it took me at least 2 or 3 days to recover, because it was very like loud noise and lots of music and lots of heavy socialising and everything. And I've generally found that the older I get, that my tolerance for that has gone down, and it sometimes it really takes a hammering. So although I'm not going to kind of argue the point, if you want me to be there, I'll be there kind of thing. I like the people I work with and stuff, but at the same time, I can fully understand why I've read accounts where somebody's been like, oh, I didn't want to go, so I didn't go, and afterwards I had problems, and everyone was like, where were you? Like, I can fully understand why that would be a thing. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I wonder sometimes, you know, do I need more time to recover as I'm getting older, or is it that, you know, now I understand why I feel this way?
Yeah. I
recognise the feelings I'm having more. Like, would I, you know, go to a birthday party when I was a child, and then, you know, be, what I'd now call my social battery ran out.
Yeah.
Or I needed recovery time. Would I feel like that, but not actually know what it was, and just, you know, sort of get accused of being grumpy or something?
Possibly.
Or just be tired. I don't know.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I do remember as a teenager, I don't know whether this happened when I was a small child, but I do remember being taken to various things. And I do remember my mum sort of saying to me, now you will be friendly, will you? Won't you? And you will be nice to people, won't you? And it wasn't just simply like instructions you give anyway. It was a bit as if I would be like horrendously standoffish or something and not, I don't know, maybe I was, but
And also you deal with your own feelings.
Yeah.
You're not sort of expecting other people to accommodate you as you get older as well.
Yeah, well that's it, isn't it?
I think when I'm shopping, when I'm out shopping, when I start to feel tired and overwhelmed and fed up, I go home.
Yeah.
When I was a child, I was out shopping with my mum or my nan or someone. I'd be feeling tired and they wouldn't know.
Yeah. And you weren't able to articulate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, just going home isn't an option, is it? Because,
it isn't, no.
Because essentially you're at the behest of someone else, aren't you?
It is. And, they'd be sort of telling me off for being awkward and not wanting to try clothes on and things and throwing a tantrum and lying on the floor and things that, I now know how to avoid. I don't feel like that anymore because I can remove myself from that situation.
I have to say, actually, one thing that's always remained constant with me, I absolutely detest clothes shopping.
Yes.
And trying on clothes, I hate it.
Yeah.
Hate it. I'm quite lucky, actually, because my partner tends to buy most of the stuff because she knows what I like, and I'll just reimburse her or whatever. But some Christmases, for example, if the work's dues on or something, there'll be like a sale on or something, and she'll come back with 2 or 3 shirts that she's picked up for me, which is very nice of her. And she'll be like, "Oh, I saw these, and they were on offer or something, and what do you think of these?" Because she knows what I like and stuff. And then she'll go, "Why don't you try them on?" And she has to bully me into trying them on, because if left to my own devices, they'd sit on the hanger in the bathroom or wherever, and they would not be tried on until I was actually going out. I just pick one of them at random and put it on.
Do you find as well that you sometimes think, oh, my clothes are all getting a bit old and tatty, I could get some new ones? So you go and buy yourself a new item of clothing, but then you don't throw out the old one that you're trying to replace.
Yeah.
And it just stays in the rotation for years and years.
Yeah, pretty much,
you think, oh, yeah, I won't wear it anywhere nice, but then I never go anywhere fancy anyway, so...
I mean...
it just gets worn and worn and worn.
Funnily enough...
Oh, there's a little hole in it, no one will notice.
I do that with socks a lot. The ones I'm wearing at the moment have some holes in them and stuff.
Oh, my jeans are right through at the knee. Oh, that's fashionable now.
Yeah, just tend to sort of justify it.
Yeah.
I mean, I tend to wear very similar things anyway. I mean, I'm a black t-shirts kind of person, and I actually remember seeing an interview with oh God, what's he called? Brains gone dead. Gary Newman, who is a celebrity, one of us. And he was on about the fact that he often wears sort of black t-shirts because, like, he decided a long time ago, that he didn't want to decide what to... And that was kind of the conclusion I came to. I thought, I like black t-shirts, they're nice. I hate picking stuff. If I have black t-shirts, I know what I'm getting, so I just wear black t-shirts. Or very occasionally, there'll be a band t-shirt that, like, my partner knows I like, and she's like, oh, here's a Led Zeppelin t-shirt or something, here you are, and I'll wear that. But otherwise, it's black t-shirts, basically. Just because it's manageable and it's nice and I know what I'm getting. Which is kind of the point, isn't it? Manageable and nice and you know what you're getting.
When I was 14, I got my first pair of flared jeans.
Oh, okay.
So they were fashionable at the time. That was the big thing. So I was wearing these flared jeans and I just loved the way they sort of swished as I walked. And I swore I'd wear flared jeans for the rest of my life. And I did until I was pregnant with my son. I just couldn't get any big flares that fitted over my enormous belly.
Aww.
So I started wearing leggings, and I got some tight jeans. So they were the fashion at the time. That were maternity ones, the big elasticated belly. I actually started to branch out a bit then. Just simply because of necessity when I was pregnant.
But it's interesting that it was that forced your hand.
And that was a good 16 years later.
Yeah. And if you hadn't had a pregnancy that it particularly showed, because it doesn't on everybody so much, does it? Then in theory you could have still got away with...
Yeah, I could have still kept wearing my normal trousers, I would have done.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting actually. I mean, this is a separate note, but I bought a new car early this year, who I've named Charlie. Named my cars, and I'd had my previous car for about 12 or 13 years, and I mean, it was second hand when I bought it. So and it was, ironically, it was when I was going home from yours last time. It basically started having problems with the clutch, and took it to the mechanics, and the mechanic was like, "Oh, yeah, okay, we can patch it up for you, but it's living on borrowed time. Really, you should start to think about." So in the end, I bit palliative care. So in the end, I kind of bit the bullet. I thought, oh, okay, fair enough, I'll do it. And although I actually did better with it than I thought I would do, I had some help and some advice from people who know about cars, because I know nothing about kind of cars. On the actual day it came to actually deliver my car and pick up my new one, I was in absolute bits.
You'll be.
Yeah, I was in bits. I mean, I'm not somebody I don't tend to cry very much. I'm not a crying kind of person. It's not because I'm some macho guy or something, because I'm clearly not, but I find it quite hard to do. But honestly, I was just sobbing. I was just holding and my partner, bless her, kind of went with her, and she was like, "It's okay, you're doing the right thing," and being very supportive. And afterwards, I just remember thinking, this is kind of ridiculous, but it's change. I can't do change. If something's been part of my life, having to give it up and stuff, it's a wrench. It's horrible. And even people who are neurotypical feel this. And I think particularly with something like a car, because it wraps itself around you and it's like your safe space.
It becomes a part of your identity.
It becomes part of your identity.
People look out for your car when they're passing your house and so on, don't
Absolutely, yeah. And I know of another friend who's ADHD, and she sort of says the same thing. Her car is like her safe space in a sense. Like if you have to drive to like another town or city that you don't know. You've still got your car with your stuff in it, and if you like music, you can have your music on, and you can have your bottle of water next to you, and you can this, that, and the other, and stuff, and you know where everything is, and you've got your stuff in the boot, and
it'll take you home.
It'll take you home, yeah. And there's a great comfort to that, isn't there?
You can eat your chips in it.
Yeah, absolutely, as we did.
But keep the rain off as you eat your chips.
Absolutely. But yeah, it's strange that
and cars become part of someone's personality, don't they? Some people have like an iconic car.
Yeah, and you can.
I can't think of my dad without thinking of this, bright tangerine transit van he used to have when I was little.
Oh, bless! It's like
even though he hasn't had this van
for a long time,
for over 30 years.
It's quite a core memory, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I think I associate my dad with his big orange transit van.
It's funny actually, because when I think of my dad, there was a white Astra that I think he had in the sort of early 90s with like a sort of green stripe on the side, and although he hasn't had this for 30 odd years, I always think of that kind of, it's just a mental association, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I tend to think of that.
Cars become part of the family.
They very much do. I mean, one of the things that...
Take them on all your days out.
I don't know how people cope with... I mean, you might be able to shed some light on this because you're a cat person. I absolutely do not know how people cope with having dogs, cats, anything basically that's not a tortoise that will probably outlive you, and even then they don't always, do they? But, like, even if your dog lives to be 19 or 20 or something, or is very, very elderly, you know that there's going to come a point when they're not with you anymore. Yeah. And that loss must feel awful.
It is, yeah.
Apart from anything else, just for purely selfish reasons, because of the impact of the change, they're not in your life anymore.
Yeah, you don't come home and...
Yeah.
You're there.
Yeah, I mean, even if you've got a pet that's an absolute pain in the arse.
Like Rolly.
I'm going to say. The number of people I've sort of heard about anecdotally that they've had a dog or a cat that's driven them up the wall or something, but then when he or she is passed on, sort of thing, I'm really glad actually that I've never had the inclination to do that, because I just think that it would be awful. I don't know how people cope. Have you always had cats?
Most of my life, yeah.
Have you missed some more than others?
There's some that you attach to more than others.
Some you attach to more than others, But even so, when one sort of passes on, does it not feel...
It does, yeah. You know, you've lost it. Well, it's like you were saying with you know, selling your car. It's like a part of your identity has gone.
Yeah. Yeah, you feel the sort of the pain of the separation.
Mm. Yeah, and anyone who's had multiple cats or dogs will always say, you know, there's just one, maybe two that they sort of really remember. You know, years and years later, and they still, you know, sort of mourn as if they were a child almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always a wrench, and you sort of fall into the mindset with pets that they are not going to outlive you.
Yeah.
When you get a cat, you know it'll only live 15, 20 years at most. So you don't sort of see yourself with that cat for the rest of your life, unless you're a very old person.
Yeah.
So it's not a shock like losing a family member. And of course, you don't have the level of relationship with your pet that you do with a human. Yeah. But yeah, it is a grieving process that you go through when they die.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say, unless you've sort of got like a creature that's very, very elderly, that's going to, you know, like a tortoise or something, or turtle or something, in theory could last for a long time. Parrots, yeah, they're quite long.
They can live 50, 60 years.
Yeah, they can be quite long. But like you say, realistically, most things are not going to outlive you. Having said that, though, on a slightly lighter note, it did amuse me actually relatively recently when there was a thing on TV about this. I think it's like the world's oldest turtle or something, and it's still alive. And basically, like it was like alive in, I think, in the time of King George III or something. So it's been around for 200 and something years. Wow. You literally have this photograph on this programme of a lot of Victorian-looking people with this thing that was an adult turtle even then. And this is obviously a photograph taken a long time ago. So all of these original keepers are long dead, and their children are probably dead, and their grandchildren are probably dead. And you know, fast forward to the present day, and this thing's literally sort of sat there going...
Did you hear about those two tortoises in a zoo that had been inseparable for 90-something years? And they'd had laid loads of eggs together as male and female, and they'd been a breeding pair for
long time.
And then they just suddenly decided they didn't want anything to do with each other anymore.
Oh.
They had a big breakup.
No, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, and
that's interesting.
Yeah, they just started fighting after 90-something years of being in love.
Oh, that's quite sad in a way. I think that's quite sad.
Well, did you hear about that couple? There was a couple who were in the 90s, a human couple. And then the husband found out that the wife had an affair.
I did hear about this,
60 years earlier.
60 years earlier,
and he divorced her.
Yes, I did.
And I sort of started thinking, well, why would you even bother doing that if it was so long ago?
Yeah, and also, like, if the person she had the affair with is dead anyway, and, you know... it's not like she's going to go off with him again, is it? So, I don't know.
But then, you know, if that's what he wants to do, if that's how he feels about it, you know...
Yeah, if it's the principle sort of thing, you know, it's taken me such a long time to... this is just a really random thing that it's reminded me of, but saying before about the sort of the... tortoises and turtles, etc. I remember my partner watching this thing about, I think it was Blue Peter. I didn't used to tend to watch Blue Peter very much, but I was aware that they had this tortoise George that they would sort of, round about this time of the year, I think they tend to hibernate between, somebody maybe know this, but like November to March or something. So they'd like put him in like a little box and sequester him away. And I seem to remember that I think they did it the first year or something and he died. And they basically had to go and get a replacement. I think this is right. I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but they basically had to go and get a replacement. But I remember thinking, like, obviously, you know, we talk about, you know, non-human creatures. But I do think that from an autistic point of view, there's actually something quite comforting about that idea. It's like, all right, you've done your bit now, so there's going to be a few months where you can just go in a box and hibernate. You know, you've been all peopled out with all these studio lights and all this chatter and stuff. We'll put you in your little shoebox and put some water for you, and you can just be. I thought, what a lovely idea. Why can't humans do that? You know, just sequester you away, sort of thing. I mean, almost back to the religious thing, it almost makes you wonder if, you know, things like religious retreats or spiritual retreats are things in which are very autism friendly in that sort of sense. You sort
Just
of
go and have a nice think.
You can have a nice think, you're away from all the kind of the bustle and noise, and you're generally with people who are on a similar wavelength to you, and
who also just want a nice
thing. Who also just want a nice thing. Although having said that, one of my friends did actually go on psychology retreat thing, and she sort of reported back afterwards that although some bits of it were good, some bits of it decidedly were not.
Really? What was not?
I think she was just sort of saying that, like, there were sort of like group activities that they were kind of doing, and they weren't really much different in terms of the vibe she got from them to kind of almost like enforced icebreaker things that they were doing on. Yeah, so she kind of thought, this isn't really my bag, really. Why am I here, sort of thing.
What is a psychology retreat?
I think
you're supposed to be learning about psychology.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was for people who were doing, like, interested in pursuing, like, therapy type courses, you know, themselves, and it was kind of to do with that. I think I could be wrong on this, but I think it was sort of partly to expand your own knowledge and partly like a networking-y kind of thing. But I think she did go away for a day or two, I think, if I remember rightly. But I know she did say that the result afterwards was a bit sort of mixed. But yeah, I don't know, just the sort of concept of sort of the sort of tortoise hibernation thing. I mean, what about astronauts actually? Are autistic people heavily represented in careers like NASA or something? I'm being a bit silly, but or what about deep sea divers? Or what about lighthouse keepers? There's a good one. I mean, they tend to be computerised these days, don't they? But what about back in the day? You know, like will lighthouse keepers tend to be autistic types? I don't know. You know, like you sort of just want to get away from it all, or at least very introverted. Not that, you know, all autistic people are, sort of thing, but yeah, it does sort of make you wonder, doesn't it? Really, with that kind of stuff.
These things have always had to be done.
Yeah, and it's a certain kind of personality that probably tends to take to them. But still, it does sort of make you. Oh, I don't know about you, but I mean, if hypothetically, like when I passed through the standard state school system, as you did, but if somebody had come along to me and basically said, okay, we'll fix it so that the amount of time that you actually spend in school is less, you can't do it all from home, but you can do some of it from home, I think I'd have gone from that right from the start, to be honest. You know,
work from home. Ooh,
yeah, I mean, please. You know, even if they'd offered me like right at the start in like year 7 or something, I'd have been like, hell yeah, that sounds good to me. You know, I'm not going to sit there worrying about opportunities to socialise I might miss out on. That's fine by me. You know, I don't mind. Yeah, even if it's just like one day a week or something. You know, almost like day release or something. I think I'd have gone for that.
Oh yeah.
You know. I mean, it seems to me actually that in a lot of sort of the modern day education system, I think they do have to be a little more aware, I think, of people's needs, don't they? So like there seems to be a bit more facility, but maybe not as much as there should be, I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of people in my home ed group who, you know, turned to home ed because they had autistic children or, you know, children with dyslexia or whatever.
Yeah.
Who were struggling at school and there was just no provision for them.
Yeah, now that I can believe. That I can believe. And it's sad to think, actually, that the sort of provision maybe hasn't altered. Not only has it not altered as much as it should have done, which we can accept, it hasn't altered really almost at all in some cases, because there's just, you know, chronic lack of time, budget, interest, training, whatever. You know. I mean, my partner and I watch Waterloo Road the drama series about the school. And in the old original Waterloo Road, they actually had a character on it called, I think she was called Carla, and she was a character with in old money Asperger syndrome, as it then was. And I think this was even before I kind of realised about my own situation. And we actually rewatched some of the early series not so long ago, and some of the Carla episodes came up, and it was very sort of sad to see the situation that she was in, because she was a very kind of bright girl who sort of had like a learning assistant person with her, but even then it wasn't anything like as much as she needed to sort of get her through, sort of thing. And you think, and that's probably the better end of what you're likely to get. So the other, the opposite end, you're going to get absolutely nothing, zero. You know. I mean, did anybody sort of ever sit you down when you were at school and go, right, you seem to be having some issues with your peers here, and it's obviously not due to lack of intellect or whatever. What's going on?
I did have a teacher ask if I was being bullied once.
Okay.
And she offered to put me into a different class,
right,
a different form.
Mm-hmm.
So I jumped at the chance to join into a different form, but it's just the same old things all over again.
Right, so it didn't make any difference.
Made no difference at all, no.
And how old were you when this switch was made?
I was nearly 12.
Okay, so relatively early on then. But you just found it just transposed one lot of bullies for another lot of bullies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the second set wasn't as bad.
Yeah.
But I don't know. They just weren't people I particularly connected with, you know.
Yeah, fair enough.
There wasn't anyone there that I really, really enjoyed going to see every day or anything like that.
And I take it there wasn't sort of ever any sort of suggestion that there was kind of anything else that they could do?
No.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, even if there had been, it wasn't really ever mentioned
no.
there was anything. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't think... I mean, aside from the standard thing that autism was never even mentioned, the word was never even mentioned when I was at school.
No, it wasn't known.
It wasn't known. But the other thing is that, aside from the sort of the fact that I was probably considered, well, I know I was considered sort of weird by some of my contemporaries or something, because essentially I turned up every day. I didn't do truancy. I genuinely didn't. I turned up every day.
Turned up every day.
Unless I was ill, which wasn't very often, to be fair. And because most of the time I didn't really cause any aggro, very rarely, and because basically, like, most of the time I did the work and you know, did okay, sort of thing, and in some cases did well, I was just left to my own devices. So the whole concept of, was I happy, was I settled, was I, you know, did I feel okay in myself, did I have friends, was I well, all of that was irrelevant, really. I mean, you know, it's not even a question.
Yeah, there is the issue, though, that with 30 children in each class, how does the teacher keep tabs on the emotional stability of every single one?
Well, and that's it, because they can't, can they?
Yeah.
They can't. So unless you really kick off...
Unless you're actually causing a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's obvious, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've often thought this, actually, in a lot of... it sort of translates to work situations as well. That there must be... I mean, although it's only a minority of us that are even in full-time employment, there must be lots of people who are sort of in situations where they kind of are masking very, very heavily, and they're trying to sort of follow rules and people please and all the rest of it, and they're kind of just bubbling below the surface, and the effort of doing so is exhausting. But because they never really have any major sort of issues, you know, they don't just get up and walk out or something, people just think, oh, they're okay, and it's a sort of pattern that just continues, isn't it? You know, I mean, I can sort of think of incidents where one or two people from sort of earlier schools and things kind of suddenly had a big dramatic kind of, you know, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me kind of moment, and sort of went off. Now, whether that was to do with with issues to do with autism and not. I don't know, but but it seems to me that if you don't sort of do that, then most of the time people tend to just assume you're all right.
And why wouldn't they?
And why wouldn't they? Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I really struggled with at university was this sort of concept that really there's no glue holding it together. Like if you're at school and you don't turn up, alarm bells will be raised, and it's the same. And it's the same as sixth form.
Yeah.
But the thing about university is, yes, okay, eventually they'll throw you out, but it takes them a heck of a long time to do that.
You're supposed to be self-motivated.
You're supposed to be self-motivated. So if you're really stressed and you're really run down and, you're absolutely burned out with it, and the whole sort of effort of trying to cope with everything is just too much. There's too much going on in your mind and you haven't left your room for a couple of days or something. No one's going to know. You might get lucky and you might be with a nice bunch of people who are concerned about you, but by and large they're not going to know, and that's quite an unsettling thought, really. And suddenly there's thousands and thousands and thousands of bloody people on this huge canvas, which may well be dotted about town. There may be different centres. It's harder and harder to keep track of people, isn't it? And that's the problem. People can just so easily slip through. I mean, what you were saying about the home education thing, there must be sort of parents and things who've sort of maybe gone to college themselves or gone to university themselves and have had these sort of issues, become aware of their own neurodivergence, and have sort of, when it's come time for their own kids to sort of get educated, kind of thing, that's been a factor in their own decision.
That's probably one of the most common ones, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Because it with the best will in the world, if it's hard to sort of provide support for people in a school where there's like 1,000 of you or something, if you extrapolate that to college or university, which is way bigger and more impersonal, it's very, very hard, isn't it? I mean, a question that I think we were asking earlier about, would you go back in time and sort of tell younger you? I don't know about you, but I mean, with like your sort of post-16 experiences, but when I sort of think about my own sort of experiences with university, I mean, I'm not sure it necessarily would have helped all that much to have known about the autism beforehand. But when I actually look back on it, I kind of think, how on earth did I cope?
Yeah. How did nobody not notice?
And how did nobody not notice? I'm not suggesting it was absolutely awful, because it wasn't, but there was just so much going on, and you sort of think, I really wasn't equipped to navigate this very well, if at all. How on earth did I manage to come out the other side? I mean, I remember when we first started to go away and look at universities and stuff. I remember the guy who was sort of showing us around, one of them said, there was a big group of us going around, and I remember him saying, every single year when we get a new intake of students, there'll be at least a couple of them that will completely freak out on the first day, leave and never come back. And they might be a minority, it might be far less than 1%, but nevertheless they're there. And at the time I remember thinking, oh, come on, why would you do that? Why you've gone to all the trouble of getting there and you've got the grades and everything, why on earth would you do that? And the older I get, the more I think, blimey, yeah, I can.
How did I not do that?
Yeah, and not only that, but why doesn't that happen more often?
That's what we were saying earlier about you don't realise you can actually leave. You don't realise it's an option.
No, we were saying that earlier in the car journey back, weren't we? Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean...
You can feel absolutely awful in any kind of situation, be it a social situation or your job or where you live or anything like that, and it just doesn't cross your mind that you can actually go if you want. Yeah,
you just sort of continue with it. And also that whole thing about not knowing how you're feeling about things. I mean, I had sort of times at university, I think, where And it was never because of the work. The work wasn't really an issue. The course was pretty easy, to be honest, most of the time. It was just the sort of weight of it, trying to sort of cope with all the different social stuff going on and trying to sort of find something that works for you and not feeling horribly, isolated or whatever. It just sort of, it just becomes very, very kind of wearing, I suppose. And you just find that the sort of negative feelings that you kind of get are just absolutely overwhelming, and it's not even like conventional sadness, it's just very, very,
It wears you down.
Wears you down, yeah. I mean, the sort of concept of the sort of comorbidities, there's certain things we tend to sort of disproportionately suffer from. I mean, I don't know about your own experiences, sort of thing, like post 16 or whatever. But I mean, a lot of the time in my 20s, I was very, very depressed.
Yeah.
Very depressed.
So I got that more in my teens.
You got that more in your teens.
Not so much as I got older.
Yeah. Oh, and if you don't mind me sort of asking, what kind of experience did you sort of have with that? Did it really incapacitate you for like several days or something, and you just couldn't really do anything, or how did it sort of manifest?
It's hard to remember clearly, to be honest.
Yeah, it's almost like it's sort of fuzzed out in your mind. Yeah.
Yeah, it See, a lot of it manifests as agoraphobia for me as well.
Right.
So, I spent most of my time indoors. Spent a lot of time online.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to people online. I had a lot of online friends. And so that was like my happy place.
Yeah.
I met a lot of like-minded people on various forums. I used to sleep a lot. So crawl into bed and sleep for long periods.
I can relate to that.
My mum's way of dealing with it was to tell me off for not having enough friends.
Right.
And for spending too much time on the computer. And for spending too much time in bed. And for being lazy and what.
Yeah.
I don't know what she hoped to achieve by that.
No.
As I look back and I think, how could she possibly have not realised there was something seriously wrong with me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe she was kind of in denial. I don't know. Maybe she thought this was just something that you have to deal with when you have teenagers. Maybe that's what kids are like.
It's what happens, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what her thought process was.
I remember...
But she was not helpful. She was not remotely helpful.
No, it doesn't sound very helpful.
And I didn't really have anyone else around me who was helpful.
Yeah, and I think maybe also if we sort of find alternative sort of coping sort of mechanisms, they're almost kind of seen as a vice. I mean, to be fair, yes, you can spend far too much time online, or you can spend. I mean, you can potentially spend too much time doing anything, can't you? I mean, you hear of people who sort of get like addictions to like the gym or something, and they're just working out all the bloody time or something. I mean, even something that should be beneficial like that, you can sort of see it.
Yeah.
But I mean, for example,
Or shopping.
Yeah. Absolutely.
People spend all their savings on buying clothes.
I mean, one of the things I've always loved to do is I've always loved to buy books. I mean, I like reading anyway, but like the acquisition of books, and there are times where like my mum sort of, she doesn't do it so much now, but like in the past she sort of said, "Oh, how many books do you have?" As though I've gone around counting them. But it's almost like with this sort of undertone of as if it's a vice.
Yeah. So you've got too many books.
Yeah, but you sort of think, well, I mean, you can always do the joke, haha, isn't it better books than, being on drugs or something, spending it all on, wine, women and song or whatever, but at the same time, you also kind of think, well, if that's what's helping somebody kind of cope and navigate the world, providing they're not literally doing nothing but reading, never going outside at all, and they're absolutely, you know what I mean? You sort of think, surely
spending money they haven't got.
Yeah, surely it's preferable to some of the other options. I mean, when I was sort of doing my degree and things, like whenever I used to sort of phone home and things, like one of the things that, you know, my parents used to sort of ask me questions like, oh, how's it going? You know, how's the course going? You know, what grades have you got and all this kind of thing. And providing the answer was yes, I'm still on the course and I'm still handing stuff in and it's blah 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 type of thing, it was fine, you know, like there wasn't no further questions asked really.
It's this thing though that I always find when people are talking about, you know, oh, you should talk about your problem, talk about your feelings. How do you know what to ask?
Yeah.
If someone is, you know, genuinely depressed, they are not going to go around bragging about it.
No.
Like if someone asked me when I was, you know, really really low, when I was sort of 15, 16, how are you feeling? I'd say I'm fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And I thought I was fine. You know, it's only looking back now that I realise how much of a state I was in.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, when I was doing my journalism postgrad course, there was a guy on there who I can remember actually recognised that I had sort of symptoms of depression. And I remember him very clearly saying to me one day, you may think you're okay, but you're not. You're unwell, you're ill. And although looking back on it now, I kind of know that the reason that I was ill was because I'm autistic. I was struggling to cope. The world doesn't make sense to me. I was overstimulated, blah, blah, blah. So in that sense, he was wrong. I wasn't ill, I was just struggling. He was right in the sense that, you know, basically I was out of my depth and I was trying desperately to cope, and he could kind of see that, and, you know, all that sort of thing. I can't remember what the statistics are now. They're a bit of a worrying statistic, but I know that we are, you know, X% more likely to die by suicide, for example. You know, we are X% more likely to suffer from certain medical complaints related to stress and other things. Because essentially, if you're trying to live in a world that's very full on, very noisy, and you're desperately trying to fit in, and let's face it, going to college, university, starting a workplace, all these things can be that thing. It's hard work. To put it mildly, it's very hard work. It's very demanding, and particularly if you don't know that you're autistic, or you've got ADHD or whatever else, and you know, it's something that is very, very draining, I think. I mean, I vividly remember actually, I had a friend at uni. I didn't keep in touch with him actually, who had bipolar, and he had to leave in the second year because he was very unwell basically, and we were all very worried about him. There's a group of us that were quite worried about him because he'd been quite unsettled for a long time, and he was having sort of manic periods and things. And I remember vividly, I was about 18 or 19, we were like waiting for his mum to come and pick him up and take him home. And I remember thinking quite vividly at the time, I'm young and this is supposed to be like the best time of my life. Why am I not having any fun? And he's not having any fun either. And it was weird. It was like, I'm not saying I went in thinking it'd be happy days or something, but it was almost as though like a door had opened and I'd seen beyond the door. And once I'd seen beyond the door, that was it. I couldn't pretend the door wasn't there anymore, if you know what I mean. It was like, yes, it is, and you know it is. You know, you're almost like the Wizard of Oz. You know, when the little man's behind the curtain, it's like, hello, I am the great and almighty. No, you're not. You're a little man behind the curtain. Now, shut up. Stop twiddling your buttons. I have a way with words. Oh dear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stop twiddling your buttons.
Stop twiddling your buttons.
I've none of that round here.
Oh, none of that. Oi. Oh, Twin Ones. It's actually one of my favourite films. I think it's one of the best films ever made. But
Wizard of Oz?
Yeah, absolutely love Wizard of Oz.
I've not seen it since I was a child. But...
if I had to, I mean, it's very hard to, but if I had to pick like top 10 films, there are two films that would always get in my top 10 no matter what, and one of them is Wizard of Oz, and the other one is a wonderful, beautiful film from the early 1900s, which is called Voyage to the Moon, Voyage à la Lune.
Oh yes, I know the one you mean. Yeah.
If you've never, by the anyone watching this, if you've never seen that one,
I just can't bring the name of the director to mind right now.
Oh, I should know.
Begins with an M, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does.
I want to say Molière, but it's not
Molière.
No,
I should know this actually. Méliès. Georges Méliès. Yeah, and
that's fun. That's a classic.
It's just amazing, isn't it? It's there's just something very pure and magical and innocent about it, but not in a saccharine kind of way, in a genuinely fun kind of way. As I say, if anybody watching this, if you care even remotely about my opinions, why the hell should you? But just in case randomly you do, check out.
I care about that opinion, certainly.
It's a really good film.
It's a good film. Yeah,
it's a really good film.
Have a look at that. Yeah.
Do you know, funnily enough, I actually went to a bookshop a couple of years ago, and they had all this cool stuff inside the shop. It was a really wonderful old bookshop that there aren't enough of anymore. And one of the things they had was the iconic scene from it. Is there's a bit where the Victorian sort of scientists are in the little kind of, and they end up in the eye of the man in the moon. You know, it's a famous image.
Yes.
And he had basically the person who owned the store had this big sort of like. It wasn't a poster, it was like an actual man in the moon cutout, like you get in a cinema. And as soon as I saw it, I went, oh, Voyage à la Lune, I know that, Voyage à la Lune. And he went, I'm so glad you've said that. He said, because most people who come in think it's Hugo. Hugo, because there was a film that was done about 10 or so years ago by Martin Scorsese, which is based on... it's actually a decent film, and the book it's based on is very good, The Invention of Hugo Cabret, but most people associate it with that. They don't realise that there's an older source material. So he said, you're the first person in ages who's correctly identified that it's this film. I was like, yes. Yeah, like sort of these top hat wearing kind of chaps in frock coats and things, and they sort of invent this wonderful sort of steampunky kind of... Steampunk wasn't even a thing then, was it? But what we would now call steampunk catapult to throw them to the moon is... honestly, how could anyone not like that? It's magical. Do you have any like that, actually?
Any films that are really special to me?
Yeah, like if you had to do a top 10, you might not be able to name them all, but there's one or two that would definitely get in for sure.
The Happiest Days of Your Life.
I've not seen that.
It's a really obscure mid-20th century comedy. It's not an Ealing film. It's got the feeling of an Ealing film.
Yeah.
Some Centrinians, obsessives, sort of see it as a predecessor to the Centrinians films.
Yeah.
It's set in a boarding school post-war, and it's a boys' boarding school, but a girls' school nearby is being evacuated, and the girls must come to the boys' school. At the same moment, some groups of parents from both schools want to come and look around, see what their children are doing, and they have to pretend that everything's normal. It's one of those that it's just a really silly film. It's so well done. It's got Alistair Sim in it.
Yes,
it's got Margaret Rutherford. It's got Joyce Grenfell in. It's got Richard Wattis in. It's got all the gang in it. It's well worth a watch if you're into that sort of thing. And
it's just, as you say, it's very well crafted and put together. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those that the pace of it changes gradually over time. It's well worth a look.
Yeah, I think, particularly as a sort of saying, you wouldn't necessarily be able to. I mean, I couldn't necessarily do the top 10 off the top of my head, but the two that I mentioned, the one you mentioned, you kind of know, don't you, that any list that you ever did would include.
Yes.
Yeah. Would include that. And I suppose it depends what you sort of look for in these things, doesn't it? But I think particularly if something sort of impresses itself upon you, it isn't necessarily always easy to articulate why, is it?
It is, yeah.
There's just something about it. It has a certain kind of indefinable, magical sort of quality.
Like I was saying earlier, you know, I really like Ealing films, but I couldn't pick a favourite.
Well, I suppose, I mean, I'm not super knowledgeable about this. I have seen a couple of them, but I suppose it's almost because it's like a house style, isn't it?
It is, very much so.
If you sort of dig the house style kind of thing, there could be at least half a dozen examples of it.
It is, yeah.
Any of which are equally, you know, equally sort of, you know, good sort of thing.
And then there's films that you think, do I actually like this film because I think it's a really good film, or do I just like it because it reminds me of when I first watched it? It was like a comfort film for me when I was a child.
Yeah. I mean, one of my my oldest friend actually, his comfort film is The Goonies, because whenever he was sort of struggling with sort of, you know, stress and depression and whatever, that would tend to be the one that he would reach for. And although I don't have quite that relationship with it, or I think it's a very good film, I can totally see that. I mean, essentially, it's about a film about a bunch of. You've seen it, haven't you?
No.
Have you not seen The Goonies?
I've not seen it. I know it by reputation.
It's essentially like a fun 1980s film about a bunch of kids that go looking for some treasure, because basically, like the area that they're living in is being threatened with being bought by some horrible developer person. So they desperately need some money, and there's this old legend that there was supposed to be this pirate that centuries ago that kind of like hid some treasure basically. So they kind of go on this kind of a crystal maze style kind of, and there's like booby traps and sort of caves to navigate, and it's just jolly good fun. It's such good fun, and everybody, the kids who are sort of in it, you know, it's got Corey Feldman in it and whatnot. They're all obviously having an absolute whale of a time making this film, and it's like, God, I can't believe we're getting paid for doing this. It's such good fun.
Again, all those sort of kids' films from the 80s, they were really well put together, weren't they? Like E.T. and Ghostbusters and Never-Ending Story.
All very good examples.
Gremlins.
Gremlins is a very, very good example. Yeah, there's an intelligence behind them.
Yeah.
That, you know, the people who were sort of making them really cared about what they were doing and were actually interested. One of the really lovely things about Goonies that I didn't realise is that there's a bit involving a pirate ship. They find an actual pirate ship, and what I didn't know until I think I watched the DVD extra or something, but the actual set that they kind of built with this pirate ship, they wouldn't let any of the kids actually see it. So when they actually see it for the first time,
that's their genuine reaction.
Wow. And it was much bigger and more amazing. So when they're all like, oh, okay, that's 100% genuine, they wouldn't let them see it beforehand. Yeah. It's little things like that. You know, the people making it obviously understand how kids tick. Yeah. And you know, they kind of play with that, you know, like, oh, you know, we'll get a genuine, authentic thing out of them.
It's like what I was saying about, you know, cartoon series when I was young as well. They're about people having adventures. They're exciting. Yeah. You know, they were about heroes and villains and.
Rainbow Bright.
Yes. 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 And it's something that you just don't get anymore. Yeah. It's gone out of fashion.
Yeah. Telling actual sort of narratives where there's stakes and there's the, you know, the good guys and bad guys kind of thing, and
people hang on to cliffs by the fingernails and things, and it doesn't happen in cartoons anymore.
I actually found out when I was sort of doing research into autism that Dan Aykroyd, of course, is autistic, but I didn't actually realise that Ghostbusters itself actually came into existence partly as a result of his autism.
Really?
Yeah, because when he was a kid, the two things that he had a real spin interest in were, one was law enforcement, and one was the supernatural.
Oh, right,
he was very interested in super. So we have the sort of concept.
You can tell, can't you?
Imagine putting those two things together. I mean, the Ghostbusters aren't cops, but they're kind of like
they're sorting out baddies.
They're sorting out, and you can totally see that. Even actually, I didn't know this until relatively recently that even the concept in the first film of where they're at the sort of top of the building and you know Gozer gets summoned and everything. I didn't know, but apparently there was an old book of like New York architecture that they got hold of that has like a lot of these really ancient buildings that have unusual roofs and things, almost like
fairly old.
Yeah, fairly old, oldish
for America.
For America, but almost a bit like a modern day version of Notre Dame, like the sort of like pseudo Gothic architecture and stuff, and they were kind of influenced by that. So in a sense, like the sort of the passion of the people making this, that the obsession to detail and things, it sort of comes across in sort of what they do. There must be no end of examples of autistic creators who've sort of made things, and the reason that what they make is so sort of powerful or engaging or whatever is because they wouldn't kind of settle for just phoning it in. They like if they're going to make something about something, it's going to be researched, it's going to be coherent, it's going to be interesting, it's going to, well, maybe not interesting to everybody, but it's, there's going to be something to it. I mean, I think the sort of ones that we've sort of mentioned, some of the sort of 1980s adventure films are great examples of that. Actually, that's a good point. I mean, I've not read the book, even though I own it, but I wonder if Bastian from Neverending Story is meant to be on the spectrum.
I don't know.
I know they did a few films, and the second and third aren't worth bothering with, but the first one's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. See, this is a thing that I notice in kind of older literature as well. You get these characters who, come across as being very, very autistic. Like, everyone always goes straight to Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
Do you know any... What fictitious characters do you think are autistic? They always straight away go Sherlock Holmes, don't they?
Yeah.
And I just think, is it a personality type that has always existed? Is it like a trope that has been around as long as there has been humanity telling stories? But we just didn't know what it was. We thought it was just a kind of a person.
Yeah. Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice is mentioned sometimes.
Yeah, he always comes up. Yeah,
he often comes up. I've not read the book. I've seen the TV series, but his dislike of sort of social pretension and his bluntness, his directness.
Yeah.
And his honesty, I suppose. He's essentially living in this silly, frothy world where people sort of talk in, half truths and things, and he's very much somebody who says, "No, it's this." It's this, isn't it?
And you can imagine if you were a writer in the past and you met someone who was a bit different, a bit of a character, they had all these sort of quirks and idiosyncrasies that, made them stand out from the crowd, you might think, oh, I'd like to write a character like that.
Yeah, so it ends up as...
Yeah. So these autistic traits end up in, characters from, classical literature. Even though they didn't know what it was at the time.
Yeah, it was, as you say, it was like almost like coalescing into certain traits, which then become kind of like almost like a blueprint for certain kinds of characters.
And when you see someone like that in a story that was from this century, you think, oh yeah, this person's deliberately meant to be autistic. Like the kid in The Curious Incidents of the Dog in the Night Time. It never actually said in the book he's autistic, but it's generally accepted that he is because it is, clearly a depiction of autism.
I remember reading Great Expectations for my A-levels. I've not read a lot of Dickens, but I quite enjoyed that. And one of the characters in... hang on a minute, am I right in thinking? Sorry, no, I'm not. It's not Great Expectations. David Copperfield. But there's a character in that who called Mr. Dick, who's like this sort of friendly, avuncular sort of character. And one of the things about him is that he lives with the main character's aunt, and he's quite an eccentric sort of bachelor type, and he has some sort of unspecified mental illness, and basically his family have tried to have him committed.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and she has basically fought this, and essentially has basically brought him to live with her. And he's like a writer, and it basically mentions that he's unable to write more than a few paragraphs without talking about, I think it's the execution of King Charles I, because it's something he's obsessed with. And he also builds these...
I was into that one bit.
Yeah.
I had a Civil War phase.
And he also builds huge kites.
Yeah.
And he's often mentioned as well. You know, like he's clearly got obsessive compulsive kind of sort of traits, and obviously, like it's almost like does he reflect other people that Dickens might have come across? Particularly back in the days where people were even less tolerant of difference than they are now, and if you did manifest any sort of differences, they would quite happily just have you committed somewhere. And
in comedy as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked at length about Father Dougal, haven't I?
Yes, you have. Yeah.
Frank Spencer always comes up, doesn't he?
Frank Spencer, very much so, yes.
Yeah, and it's this idea of someone who's just not quite normal.
Yeah. And also, actually, they're very good examples because both Frank and Dougal have a real sort of childlike innocence about them. They're completely not malevolent characters at all. There's no bad intention with them, but they seem to be able to sort of cause complete chaos wherever they go with minimal effort, despite genuinely being well-meaning
and at a glance seem like perfectly normal members of society.
Yeah.
But it's because they are put in awkward situations where they have to try and behave like a human.
Yeah, and
do some adulting.
Yeah,
that's when it all starts falling down, and it becomes comedy.
Yeah.
Because you're watching this person who, should be able to do this, but is struggling.
Yeah. And sort of whatever situation you kind of put them into, it just seems to all kind of self-destruct.
And they just behave in a way that's slightly off.
Yeah. A bit like the uncanny valley sort of concept of, the sort of, I think we mentioned this in a previous video.
This person just can't quite human.
Yeah. It's almost like if they're an android, the programming is slightly off. It's like the cloaking device doesn't fully work or whatever. I'm just trying to think. Actually, are there other sort of fictional characters that are often sort of mentioned as representative of this? There must be a couple of
I'm
other
just trying
ones.
to think of some that are commonly.
Yeah, I'm trying to think as well.
I mean, I can think of some that I've noticed myself.
Yeah, same sort of headcanon ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays it's all
Like
sort
Stan Laurel's screen persona.
Yes, very
Definitely,
much so.
Yeah. Again, that's that kind of childlike innocence, isn't it?
Yes, very much so.
Just not quite humaning properly.
And he actually, to some extent, I mean, Ollie is sort of meant to be like the leader in the relationship.
Yes.
But he's very pompous and full of himself, and he's a lot less competent than he thinks he is. And Stan sort of goes along with what he wants most of the time. But the joke is that Ollie really isn't any more competent than Stan is.
Ted and Dougal.
Like Ted and Dougal, yes. Ollie just thinks he is. I can't remember which of the films it is actually, but I seem to recall there was one where Ollie goes on holiday or something, and Stan kind of house sits for him or something, and then he comes back and it's like the burned out wreck of his house. I got your house down, Ollie, and he's like, ooh. It's like, why on earth would you get Stan to look after your house while you're on holiday? Why is that a good idea? Do you not know what he's like by now? It's sort of quite. Have you ever seen This Is Spinal Tap, the film? No. There's a famous bit. It's basically a mock documentary about a rock group on tour.
Yeah.
But there's a famous bit in it where basically they're supposed to be doing this concept song about Stonehenge, and a sort of papier-mâché Stonehenge is lowered down, and instead of being like an enormous thing, it's basically this tiny little Stonehenge that kind of comes, and then all these like small people come and sort of start dancing around it, and when the sort of main songwriter kicks off at the manager and he sort of says, "Why the hell was it so small? It was going to be crushed by a dwarf," kind of thing, and he sort of says, Nigel, who's the guitarist, he's like, all he wrote it was going to be such and such a tall, and he basically did it in inches, not in feet. It's like, well, it's not your job to be as confused as Nigel. It's a similar sort of thing, isn't it? This sort of childlike. I don't know where Nigel Tufnell is meant to be on the spectrum, but just that sort of blank incomprehension, isn't it? And childlike quality about it. You've seen Silent Running, haven't you?
I have.
What do you think about the idea of Freeman Lowell being on the spectrum?
I don't know.
He's certainly got obsessive-compulsive tendencies, hasn't he?
I mean, and he likes his little robots.
He likes his little robots.
Good pals with his little robots, isn't he?
I mean, you could almost put a sort of autistic lens on that, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Because let's face it, the 3 crewmates that he's kind of with on the ship, they're all very, very neurotypical, aren't they?
They are indeed, yes.
You know, almost kind of exaggeratedly so in some cases. He's the only one that really gives a shit about the mission statement.
And he personifies the robots, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. And he relates a lot better to them than he does to the 3.
And he's the one who's kind of at one with nature, isn't he? He's the one that...
Yeah, and also the interesting thing about the film, Silent Running, by the way, if you haven't seen it, you should. It's a really good film.
It is, yes. Can recommend.
But the interesting thing about it is like...
That and Voyage to the Moon.
Absolutely.
We like spaceships.
Spaceships are good. But if you look at sort of Silent Running, I mean, the things that he sort of does to try and look after the plants and save the plants, he has to do some fairly extreme things, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
But at the same,
won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it.
who hasn't seen it.
Yeah.
But at the same time...
He has to do extreme things.
But I don't know about you, but when I sort of watched it, I didn't come up... At no point was I kind of horrified by what he was doing. I was kind of thinking, yeah, fair enough, I can see why he's doing that. That makes total sense, you know. Yeah, you know, he's supposed to be protecting the plants in the forest and something. So yeah, I can get that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting actually that
he's always like the odd one out character.
He's always the odd one out.
He's the one who sort of isn't afraid to say, actually.
Yeah.
I think this.
Yeah, and also I think there's a bit, isn't there, where like it's sort of like the camera sort of moves to this certificate that he's got on the wall. It's like a pledge that he's taken to protect the flora or fauna or something. And you think, well, he's obviously embraced the mission statement, hasn't he?
Yes.
He's been told, right, that's your job, you have to do this. And he's like, okay, fine, I'll do it then. You know, and it's very matter of fact, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, that sort of thing. But yeah, in hindsight...
That's interesting. That's an interesting one.
It's just something I've thought about relatively recently. I rewatched it. I think I sent you the DVD, didn't I?
Yes.
Yeah, and it was actually on TV. Andrea, my partner, recorded it for me. So I actually rewatched it earlier this year. I've not seen it for a while, but I just remember thinking, I do wonder if Lowell is meant to be... is in hindsight could be seen as one of us. I don't know.
Yeah. Unlikely to be meant to be. But...
No, but nevertheless. And it's not just sort of cabin fever or isolation, because you can get these films, can't you, where somebody sort of like
goes a bit round the bend.
The bend, you know, The Shining or something. But there I get the sort of sense with it really that the character of Lowell in the film is very intense and he does genuinely care, and it's almost like in the film that like the concept of other people caring, it's not only incomprehensible to him, but it's sort of, it's almost like an anathema to him. He can't, well, you know, why don't they care? You know, this stuff's important, what's going on, you know. I believe the character, I've not seen it, but one that's mentioned of more recent times is that film that, oh God, what's he called? Ewan McGregor was in. Salmon fishing in the Yemen or something. Oh. I've heard that mentioned a few times. It's about a chap who's basically sent to, you know, he's doing a feasibility study or something.
Yeah.
For doing like a trout farm in the middle of the salmon farm in the middle of the desert or something. And he sort of knows a lot about fish and aquatic stuff, but he's quite awkward and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know whether...
Yeah, I mean, it's going back to this idea of the personality type, you know, the kind of nerdy, awkward character.
Yeah.
Now, how much was that a stereotype that came about from, you know, people being aware of autistics around them in the past?
Yeah. And
or is it just a kind of a neurotypical?
Yeah. How much
is it something that's...
How much of it's sort of built up? I mean...
Yeah, in the population.
I mean...
And how much is the neurotypical perception of people who have hobbies.
Yeah, and are just interested in something that they're not, especially something that's quite niche.
Yeah.
I remember somebody that I used to work with saying to me once that when I was trying to sort of like get anecdotal evidence together for my assessment, and he was saying he remembers I went to some work do once or something, and he said some of the things that you talked about were quite niche. I remember thinking, were they? I didn't think they were niche. I just thought they were interesting. I don't know why everybody doesn't find them interesting, but that's kind of the whole thing, isn't it? You know,
it is.
You know, I was on a Bertrand Russell tear at the time. Like, why aren't more people interested in his work? It's interesting, you know. Why don't more people know about the Barber paradox? It's interesting.
And I wonder as well how many writers are autistic.
Yeah.
Writing is a very autistic pastime.
It is. It's very solitary, isn't it?
And they kind of write about themselves.
Yep.
And, you know, the problems that they've had in life and things that they find irritating.
Yeah.
Things that, you know, their own wish fulfillment.
And even if it's in a fictional character, a fictional context.
Even if they don't particularly know that they themselves are autistic.
Even if they're writing like fiction or something, there'll usually be like one character in particular, or maybe a couple of characters who sort of have things that they do and have issues with similar kind of things. You know, writers tend to sort of it's almost like an author proxy, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, there's a character in there that essentially is you, and you know the opinions that he or she spouts or whatever are essentially what you think.
Not even as a conscious thing.
Yeah, but it just comes out, you know, like
the point of view character sort of encounters people that the author has encountered because that's their experience of life. That is what they want to write about. It's what, you know, that it's the conversations that they have had.
Yeah.
It's the characters that they have come across.
Yeah, and all of that sort of ends up being kind of fictionalized, yes, but it still kind of tells the truth. You know, it's like a
it's the world that they live in. They're writing what they know.
Yeah, I mean, I went through a phase at university of being quite interested in sort of reading dystopian kind of books, and I sort of found with that you know the ones that I liked the most were ones where the world is very still recognisably ours. It's not completely post-apocalyptic or whatever, but there's just one or two things that are tweaked to kind of make it veer off into some, you know, like Fahrenheit 451 or something. You know, like it's essentially 1950s America, but 1950s America if there were no books.
Yeah.
You know, people go around burning books, you know, and for example, so it's not that far ahead technologically or when it was written. It's just that it sort of reflects people's...
Like Black Mirror.
Black Mirror is a good example, yeah. Did you watch a lot of that when it came out?
I watched the first 2 series. I was surprised it was still on, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched the first couple of series.
Weirdly enough, I was always a bit cautious on Black Mirror, and it's not because I don't think it's brilliant, because what I've seen of it, I think it is. It's just that it's that dark.
Yeah.
I have to be a bit careful sometimes. I'm fine with horror, because horror, there's enough suspension of disbelief, but stuff like that kind of occupies a hinterland where it can be quite uncomfortable.
Yeah,
and I know
it's so close to technology that we have.
Yeah.
That's the point of it, isn't it? It's just what if...
It's just one step further. One step further.
Yeah.
I have seen a couple of the episodes. I knew somebody that was into it who sort of showed me a couple of them, and you know, I mean, all the ones I saw I liked in the sense that I thought, yeah, that's really clever, because in a sense the world that you're being shown is like not that dissimilar from the actual world we live in, is it? It's just usually like one or two things slightly further. I think one of the ones that I found most effective was, I think there's one where there's a guy and a girl who basically love each other, and like people have to ride on exercise bikes in order to provide.
Yes.
And it's like if you're not doing this, then you have no worth as a citizen.
Yeah, you're producing the electricity by using your bike.
By doing this, yeah.
And they earn credits.
And they earn credits, yeah.
And then they have a show.
They have a show that you can go
where you can earn 15 million credits.
Yeah, sort of an X Factor style show, and she sort of wants to go on and sort of sing, and then
But she gets
put on this sort of
on a porn film instead.
Thing. And there's this sort of thing of, why aren't you grateful? You should be really grateful.
Yeah.
Lots of people would love to be in the position you're in. What's wrong with you, kind of thing. And I think particularly from an autistic point of view, watching something like that, I don't know about you, but obviously your sympathy is with her, kind of thing. But I don't know about you, but
and it shows you the scene where she's given this choice and the pressure that's on her.
Yeah.
And she's told, we'll give you drugs so you don't feel shame and things like that. No, and the audience is like, do it.
Yeah, and it's very manipulative, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, I have never and probably could never sit through a full episode of something like The X Factor or something.
No.
Aside from the fact that I'm not interested in it, I think stuff like that is ugh, and it's really not for me. The level of manipulation that goes on with stuff like that.
Yeah.
You get the hooting audiences and all this kind of stuff, and it's very in your face and bang, 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 and there's no subtlety to it. I mean, whoever wrote that particular episode of Black Mirror has obviously, studied carefully how these things are done and knows what they're on about, because that very much rang true for me when I saw it. This whole kind of go and be a prostitute, that'll be good, won't it? What's the matter with you? Why don't you feel, why don't you go and take advantage of this marvellous opportunity that we've given you? Are they called Wraith Babes or something like that? Yeah. I know a lot of people talk about is it the White Bear episode or something?
Yes. Yeah, that's really disturbing. That one.
And there's the other one, isn't there, where is it based on the David Cameron stories about the...
Oh, no, it actually preceded that.
Did it?
Yes.
I didn't know.
It's sheer coincidence.
Oh, okay. I genuinely did not know.
That's why it became so famous, because it was...
It's just an example of life imitating art, not the other way around.
Yeah.
But that's the other one people tend to talk about, I think, isn't it? I know there are other ones, but...
I really enjoyed the Christmas special. I thought that was really well put together.
Which one was that?
That's the one where there's a man who's invented a way of blocking people in real life.
Oh, okay.
And he sort of does a bit of mind control. He's like a sort of alpha male influencer. And he talks these young lads who aren't confident. He sort of tells them, what to wear, how to dress, how to talk to women, how to seduce. And one of them actually gets killed doing this.
Okay.
Because he sort of ends up with a woman who's sort of psychotic, and he thinks she's they're chatting each other up, but no, she's actually sort of taking him home and she kills him.
Yeah.
And so he has this punishment that he's blocked from everybody.
Right.
And there's also a man who his wife had had a baby with somebody else, and obviously he's very upset, but his wife had blocked him, so he couldn't see his wife, he couldn't see the child, and it starts off, it looks like the man who invented the mind control and the man who's blocked from his wife and his child are in some sort of little bunker together. And gradually it emerges that the man who's doing the mind control is trying to get a confession out of him.
Right.
And it's so clever how it's done. And gradually you realise that the bunker that they're in is as a modified version in this man's mind of the kitchen where he went to see his father-in-law, who was raising the child after his wife died, and he murders his father-in-law.
Right.
And it's this trying to get trying to put him in this position, so he will be brought back and back to where he was and give the confession. It's very, very interesting.
It sounds interesting. Actually.
It is. It's very hard to describe because it's not linear. You sort of see a bit of one of these men's lives and a bit of the other one, and it's very clever how it's done, and how it gradually emerges that they're not in the bunker, they're in the kitchen where the father-in-law was.
I mean, I suppose with something like that, is it has sort of parallels with the influence of things like the Twilight Zone, doesn't it? It sort of takes certain aspects of life, shall we say, and kind of does something with them.
Very unsettling.
Which is unsettling, yeah. The reason I mentioned Twilight Zone was because I'm a fan of both the original series and the 80s series, but I remember picking up the 80s box set some time ago when I went through a phase of watching a lot, and there's one episode that I forget what it's called, but basically this guy is judged to be too rude.
Right.
There's a crime in the future that you could be too antisocial, too rude. Like people find you too blunt, or they find you too, hence why I'm mentioning it. But basically the punishment that he gets is for a whole year, people won't talk to him or acknowledge that he exists.
Wow.
So basically you get this little mark put on your head, almost like the mark of Cain in the Bible or something. And literally for a whole year it's as if you're invisible and you don't exist.
Wow.
So initially he thinks this is absolutely marvellous, because he goes into like an all-you-can-eat restaurant kind of thing, and of course the staff can't acknowledge him. So he's there kind of like ladling this enormous pile of food and going, "Hey, I'm just going to have this. Is that okay? Hey, I'll have some of this as well." Woo, but as sort of time goes on, like the sort of the loneliness of it, not being able to communicate with other people, sort of wears on him, and it kind of makes you realise that it's actually the isolation is actually a worse punishment than you kind of imagine. You almost kind of think, oh, come on, how bad can it be? It's only a year, but actually it's pretty horrendous. Quite subtle actually. So it just reminded me of that.
Interesting.
Yeah, it just reminded me of that with you saying about it, and the idea as well that you can be sort of sentenced to this for essentially for being too blunt or too rude or something. How many of us would fall foul of that, I wonder? Probably lots. There's a similarly good one actually where a lad is having to take like an intelligence test, and you have to basically take this test, and actually I won't say any more on that one because it will end up spoiling it, but that's a good one as well. As a sort of concept, but yeah, you do wonder with the sort of the writing thing, the sort of obsessive attention to details and things, especially things like science fiction authors or fantasy authors or something, very
who have to write a really vivid world.
Well, that's the thing. I've never been any good at long form fiction, although I do write. It's not something I'm good at. So people who can kind of like Frank Herbert did with the Dune series, for example. They literally have not only, their own character, but it's an entire believable world or system of worlds where everything's thought about, culture, history, the physics of it, how many suns does it have. It seems to me you've got to do a lot of research to kind of come up with something like that, long form storytelling. And to be able to do it well is a real gift.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the series of books called the Heliconia series?
No.
I only picked them up relatively recently, but they were done by a bloke called Brian Aldiss, and there's 3 books in the series. They were done in the 80s. I think they won awards and things, but I think they're called Spring, Summer and Winter. And the basic premise is that there's this world which is inhabited by human-like people. They're not actual humans, but they're essentially us just on a different world.
Yeah.
And it's basically a binary star system, so basically it orbits this, but a single year on Heliconia, wherever I think it's called Heliconia, is like the equivalent of about 2,000 of our years. So basically a complete revolution takes a huge amount of time, so the seasons will last for a very long time, and in the amount of time that it takes for like a single season to pass, whole civilizations can have kind of come and fallen. So there isn't really one central character in the books. It's more like the world itself as a character. To come up with something like that, for example, you think of all the sort of stuff you'd have to kind of read up on stars and you know, gravity, how gravity works, and...
See, this is something that I've found writing Dreamstone fanfic. Because it's set on a distant planet, but it's never actually explained in the series how seasons work.
No.
Or, you know, because there obviously are other planets around the place in canon. There are moons, there are asteroids, the thing. But it's never really explained how this works fully. I mean, it's a children's cartoon series, nominally. So presumably there is a sun somewhere, because they have night and day. They have seasons. There are, you know, there are episodes that are set in winter time. It's usually sort of spring, summer sort of time, but there are winter time episodes. So clearly the weather does change. We go through some sort of cycle. I don't know how long a year is. There are mentions of characters having birthdays and annual events, so I'd guess that they're probably... a year is probably around the same length it is on Earth. But they never actually say how many years old any of the characters are.
No.
Specifically.
And you have quite a mix of different types of creatures living alongside each other, don't you?
Who are clearly from other planets.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Noopville clearly is not big enough to have a, you know, a sustainable population of Noops. They must have come from another planet. I mean, the Earpneys are entirely male. They must be breeding somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then the male Earpneys are, well, in my headcanon, they're kind of forcibly taken. Because, well, clearly Nug and Frizz don't want to be there.
Who can blame them? Because you have lots of different sort of types of it, because there's the woods that live in the forest, for example, aren't there?
They do.
I always thought they were called Watts when I was a child.
So did I.
Yeah, Watts.
Yeah,
Woods.
until I actually saw it in writing.
Yeah. Because I'm sure people pronounce it Watts in the thing, rather than Woots or whatever.
Yeah. Most of them have southern accents, don't they?
Yeah, Woots. But the Dream Maker himself is sort of quite a humanoid-looking sort of character, isn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, he could just pass for a human, couldn't he?
He's the only human, really.
I mean, the only sort of like non-human thing about him is the fact that he sort of floats, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Which, you know, you could sort of, I mean, essentially...
And he's immortal.
Yes, and he's immortal. But I mean, essentially, he's like a sort of, you know, typical wizard-type character, isn't he? He could be Gandalf or something, couldn't he? But yeah, that's actually quite a good example of a sort of children's series that sort of does this very sort of complex world building where there's, you know, is it sort of high fantasy or low fantasy? I forget the distinction, but it's like entirely on its own thing with its own rules and its own peoples.
Yes.
So it hasn't sort of, it's not like it's 5 minutes into the future on Earth or something. It's like it's on a completely different world with totally different stuff.
It is.
And like you say, to sort of do that and do it well.
And then I start questioning things like, so what's the force of gravity?
Yes.
You know, that they do visit other planets here and there. And then, what do we do about gravity?
Got some?
No, I'm all right then.
You sure?
No.
Yeah, how does that sort of work?
How do they breathe in the other atmospheres?
Because they seem to move in the same way that we do.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, as I say, they're not all from this planet originally.
And the level of technology that seems to be on the sort of planet, I mean, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because on the one hand, it seems quite sort of medieval / early modern in terms of like the level of technology, but then you have people flying on leaves. So it's like magic seems to coexist with...
Well, what I've deduced from it is, you know, the Woots are the magical creatures. The Noops live in a sort of pre-industrial age.
Yes.
And the Earpneys live in a sort of mid-20th century.
Yeah.
Technological.
Yeah.
But maybe with a hint of magic as well.
With a hint of magic as well, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the sort of the armour designs and things are sort of reminiscent of, well, actually quite reminiscent of actually like the First World War, aren't they?
Yeah.
The sort of German sort of style pickle hub. I mean, whether it's just to make them look more stereotypically militaristic or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's that oft-quoted thing, isn't it, from Arthur C. Clarke? Is it Clarke's law about sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from sort of magic, which is true. But go on.
I was going to say some of the things that Erpgor invents are magical.
Yeah, in the sense that whatever the laws of physics would kind of be, you can't really imagine a world where that would actually happen. There'd have to be something else to make it.
Like he invents an invisibility potion.
Yeah.
That's not technology. That's magic.
Yeah, sure. It? Yeah. Or there's some sort
of. But then the other Erpnies sort of seem to fear magic.
Yeah. So it's almost like he has some sort of license to.
Yes.
Yeah. And also the way that sort of Erpgor dresses with the sort of the white coat on kind of thing. It's very 20th century, isn't it?
It is.
Essentially, he's the sort of archetype of the mad scientist, isn't he? Who sort of regards.
Essentially.
Yeah. Who kind of regards basically like any of the other sort of Erpnies as would be test subjects for his. Because I think there are episodes, aren't there, where somebody other than Frizzand or Nug gets some witless Erpney gets sort of used as his to demonstrate something and make somebody disappear or something.
Yeah. There are odd ones where they just drag in another Erpney.
Yeah.
So remember, there's another 2,000 of them.
Yeah, they have like some name like Erg or something. Or,
yeah. There seems to be a lot called Boff and Erk.
Erk, yes, Boff and Erk. Yeah, they have sort of these kind of names. But yeah, that's actually quite interesting about the different sort of time periods that it sort of represents.
Which adds to my theory that they're all from different planets originally.
That they come with different levels of technology and advancement. Yeah. Oh, isn't Vilthed a planet?
No, but Vilthed is the mountain.
Is it a mountain?
It's the mountain where Zordrak lives.
Does he not? Is there not like a planet that they live on though? Are they on the same world?
Yeah, they live on one side of the planet. The land of nightmares is one side, and the land of dreams is the other. And there's a mist of limbo and the sea of destruction in between.
Okay, fair enough. So it's all one kind of planetary system. That's interesting. But yeah, considering it's ostensibly aimed at children, it's quite an advanced thing, isn't it?
It is.
In terms of the variety of ideas and things that are in it is very sort of creative in that way. And the interesting thing actually is that if you think about it, most TV things that are aimed at kids, they tend to sort of pick the side in a way, whether it's magic or science. So you'll have a show where stuff happens and it's magic, and it's clearly magic that happens, or you'll have like a sort of series where, like superheroes or something, where it's sort of science fiction type powers or whatever. But it's interesting that they have this sort of like grab bag approach to it. That's something you don't tend to get very often, I think. And
it's consistent as well.
And it's consistent, yeah. Yeah, the consistency is the thing. I mean, if you think about like a lot of... I'm trying to think about some sort of classic sort of kids' TV things. I mean, if you think about something like 5 Children in It, for example, which I remember watching when I was younger. The kids basically in it go off on adventures, and literally the reason they do is because the Sammy-Ad, that's the sort of the spirit thing. Well, he's a sand spirit thing basically. Essentially, he's a genie that can grant wishes. That's basically what it is. So it's magic. He can do this stuff because he's magic. So if you want to grow a pair of wings and fly across the sky or something, which I think they do in one episode, it's done via magic. You also have these sort of series, don't you, where you'll have someone that's like a mad inventor or something, and they'll come up with some, piece of technology that then goes awry. I mean, if you think about, we've got a visitor.
We have a Zebedee.
Oh, Zebedee. If you think about, the Back to the Future series, for example, as a great example, because literally it's a time machine. It sometimes flies, sometimes doesn't, but it's like, what can we do with time travel in the context of one person's life or a couple of people's lives? How can we sort of change the world? And it sort of picks its side, doesn't it? There's never any suggestion of magic. It's literally science fiction, whether it's plutonium powered or Mr. Fusion powered or whatever. But yeah, it's
There comes a point with science fiction. Well, like you were saying about the TARDIS,
Mm.
there's nothing about the TARDIS that is scientific.
No.
But it's described as if it could actually happen.
Yeah.
Every sort of spiel about how it works is, the Doctor can sort of explain that it's powered by this substance and that substance and this interacts and that happens. But it's complete rubbish. It's completely made up. It's basically magic.
Yeah.
But with a bit of babble to it.
Well, the interesting thing about that, it's absolutely right, is that the TARDIS is basically a magic door.
Yes.
And the biggest, I don't know whether you're aware of this, but you may well be, but the biggest and most obvious early influence on the TARDIS was the line "The Witch in the Wardrobe."
That's interesting.
Yeah, because literally, it was one of the sort of big influence. Because the whole point of the line "The Witch in the Wardrobe" is that the wardrobe is the means by which you have the adventure, and it's bigger on the inside than it should be.
Yes.
It's like a doorway to another world. I mean, from a plot point of view, the function of the TARDIS is to get you somewhere where you can go off and have an adventure.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, it's essentially magic, isn't it? Really, it's a magic door. Yeah. Really. Because on the rare occasions that the Doctor does try to sort of explain about, it's dimensionally transcendental or whatever, the explanations never make any sense because they're absolutely ridiculous. I remember there's one of them where it was one of the Tom Baker episodes actually. The companion asks him to explain how is it bigger on the inside than the outside, and he literally has two boxes, and he sort of says, "Okay, here's two boxes. Which one's bigger?" And she sort of goes, "Well, they're the same size." He goes, "Oh, okay, fine, right. You take that box and go and stand over there then. Which one's bigger?" And she's like, "Well, that one looks bigger, but it's only because you're further away." And he's like, "Yes, but if you could keep it at that size, where it's smaller, you could fit it into this one." And then she literally goes, "Well, that's just silly, isn't it?" And then he's like, That's transdimensional engineering. And you're like, bollocks.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, bollocks, Tom. No, it's not. I mean, what he's essentially describing is how optics works, isn't it? How
these cows are small.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, if you could keep the cows at that size in that field over there, you could put them in your pocket. Yeah, nice one, Tom. Doctor.
Ed.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's clever and it's fun, but you're right. I mean, as an explanatory thing, it's nonsense, isn't it? It doesn't make any sense.
No, it's not science.
No, I mean, it would be better, really, in a way, if she was like, "Oh, why is it bigger on it?" Because it just is, okay. It just is. I bought it like that. All right. What do you want from me? They did do ones where it was the same size on the inside, but you can't fit everything in. So I had the deluxe model. And yeah. Honestly, I mean, to be fair, you've got an entire premise of the series where by far the most iconic villains on it trundle around on these little wheels. And until the 80s, couldn't even go upstairs.
Yes.
It wasn't until Remembrance of the Daleks that they actually had them be able to go upstairs, because it had become a joke. Oh, how can they conquer the universe? They can't go upstairs. So I think the sort of detailing and that sort of thing is sometimes left out, isn't it?
Yes.
But there you are. Doctor Who is one of my spins.
Sometimes you just have to kind of skim over things and hope no one notices, don't you?
Yeah, that's what they did in the Bible. It's two different creation stories. Nobody will mind. It's fine.
Yeah, God made Adam and Eve, and then but he actually. Yeah, he made Eve out of Adam's rib. Yeah, forgot to mention that in chapter 1.
Yeah, we didn't put that bit in initially. We
just thought we'd keep you in suspense.
I can't remember which.
Were you wondering where Eve came from? Well, we're going to tell you now.
I can't remember which bit this is in, but I seem to remember that there was one episode, so one bit in it where. I think it's Jacob. He wants some stripy cattle or something, And basically he's like, how do I get stripy cattle? And I think there's a bit where God basically says to him, if you get a stripy stick or something and you get the cattle to mate in front of the stripy stick, the offspring will have stripes. So basically he does this and it works. All the cattle, they're all stripy. Like,
I don't think that really happened, did it?
No.
No.
It's like, I get that you don't. I get that you don't understand how genetics works, but surely the principles of the universe should still be the. Isn't there even a bit where they get the value of pi wrong? I'm sure there is.
The Valley of Pi.
Value of pi, as in the mathematical.
Oh, I thought you said the Valley of Pi.
Valley of Pi.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
The Valley of Pi.
Let's have a lovely day out in the Valley of Pi.
Cheese and cream pies and steak pies and apple pies. But,
down in the valley.
the
Just over the mountain of pasta.
And the river of custard. I'm sure there's also a bit where they actually give the dimensions of the ark. And it's not actually that big.
No.
So when you actually consider that, like, it's supposed to have 2 of everything on there.
A bit squash.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, even if this was somehow possible and you could actually track down 2 of everything, putting them onto something that is significantly smaller than a modern cruise ship would be. You'd even if you had like a modern cruise ship.
Now you know how they didn't get the dinosaurs on.
Yeah, well, too big. But even if you had like the modern equivalent of like the QE2 or something or whatever it is, and you had some bloody enormous thing, and you could literally, even then you'd struggle, wouldn't you? Fitting everything on. So, you know, I mean, you can kind of go, oh, there were less variety of things in well, okay, but
just couldn't fit on any unicorns, I'm afraid.
Yeah, sorry about the unicorn, but I don't know if you've ever come across this, by the way, but there's one of my friends was telling me there's a map. There's an old map in Hereford Cathedral, the Mappa Mundi, and it's basically one of the oldest sort of extant medieval sort of maps of the world.
I'm aware of the map. I'm Mappa Mundi aware.
Yeah. And I've got a small book of reproduction of it at home. But the interesting thing is that like it's literally like kind of in the sort of manner of Here Be Dragons kind of thing, because they had some concept of where, you know, the European countries, they knew where they were, so they're sort of reasonably okay. We know where France is, we know where Italy is, we know where Spain is and stuff. And then as
it goes towards the edges, it gets.
It's just suddenly like manticores and dragons and Here Be Dragons kind of thing. And it's, you know, it's like, I've no idea what's here. I'm just gonna make up.
Don't go there. There's dragons.
Yeah, I'm just gonna write a load of stuff and kind of thing, you know. And you know, you can almost imagine the supervisor of the project. You just made that up, haven't you? No. No. Oh, I haven't. I think you have. No. I mean, it's a wonderful thing. It's absolutely brilliant. I mean, I'd love to go and see the real thing. Amazing, but yeah, you just think, you know, in terms of like,
actually being able to find your way around using it.
Cartographical accuracy, probably not so much really. You know, it's a bit like the biotapestry, isn't it? Essentially, it's like it sort of says how they viewed the world, really, rather more than. You know, the sort of you know, accurate representation of sort of things or whatever. But, so, yeah, we didn't know. We just made it up. We'd no idea really. We just invented it. How long have we been going for?
Just over 2 hours.
That's it, yeah. Don't know, right. How long did we go for last time? We go for about 3 or something.
4.
That's impressive. And how many views did it get again?
I can't remember, 30 something.
That's impressive.
I don't think they all watched it all the way through.
There's probably some section where they just. I think there was even a section towards the end where we were like, "Arr!" kind of thing.
I'll put a link in the description. If you're not bored after 2 hours, we've got a 4-hour one. He'll love it.
Did we mention last time about the Andy Warhol thing?
I can't remember.
You know, he would sort of do these experimental kind of films, and I'm sure I mentioned this in one of the... But there's one called Empire where he literally has like a camera like on the side of the Empire State Building for like a ridiculous amount of time, and that's the film basically. It's just like, you know, the side of the... Here's the side of the Empire State, you know, like no one of the right mind would sit through, you know. But
we actually produced dialogue.
Yes, very true, very true. I mean, the quality of the dialogue is...
It gradually declines over the course of 4 hours.
As we become more sleep-deprived and giddier, and sillier. But having said that, though, I don't know if you're familiar with this. I know you're not super into music, but have you ever heard of you know Lou Reed?
I'm a Lou Reed aware, yes.
Have you ever heard of something called Metal Machine Music?
No.
It was an album that he did in the mid-70s, and it's basically 4 tracks. It's about an hour long in total, and every single one is basically guitar feedback.
That sounds fantastic.
It's literally like 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes of guitar feedback, and I think the way he did it, I believe, was he basically got like guitars on like I don't know, stands or something, and he sort of found a way that you could sort of pluck one of the strings, and essentially like the noise from the speaker would trigger another one, and it was like an infinite loop kind of thing. And essentially, I don't know entirely what his reasons for doing it, but given Lou, who knows? Because he could. But I think it was basically a up yours to his record company, and he basically like handed it in and was like, "Yeah, there's your album," kind of thing. Get it released, and
did it sell?
Well, that was the interesting thing, because briefly in the early 70s, he'd had hits. I mean, like, you know, Perfect Day and, you know, like Walk on the Wild Side and whatnot. So essentially, I mean, I think he'd done 1 or 2 sort of like edgy albums after that had lost him some fans, and I think this was like the absolute final kind of, you know, chucking the rest of them overboard, basically.
I preferred his earlier work.
Yeah, I preferred his earlier work. But apparently he did once... The reason I mention it in the context of this was apparently he did once say, I think it was something along the lines of, if anybody's ever managed to listen to it from one end to the other, then you're even dumber than me. You know? It's like, I didn't do that and I made it, you know. I don't know about you though, but I've always had a bit of a perverse admiration. I don't know why, it's me being willful, I suppose, but for sort of artists of various kinds who really genuinely don't give a shit whether the fans actually like something or not, and just go, there you are, if you don't like it, kind of thing. Maybe because I know I wouldn't have the courage to do that, but I find something perversely admirable about it in a way.
I've made enough money.
Yeah, kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, didn't Picasso basically spend like his later years sort of endlessly doing sort of pastiches of Velázquez's Las Meninas, you know, with the mirror and like critics said, oh, why is he wasting his talent doing this or something? And he just carried on. He literally like would, you know, or like he'd do a doodle.
Cause stuff you, that's why.
Yeah, exactly. You know, or he'd do some little squiggle or something, and then like sign it and give it to somebody, and then they'd sell it for huge amounts of money just because it was signed Pablo Picasso or whatever, and it was like a kind of thing. You know, should you not be using your talents better? But he was like, well, I'll use it how I want. All right, I don't care what you think. Yeah, it's trying to think of an example actually. Sure. Oh, that's right, Dali. He used to sign blank canvases, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he signed blank canvases and then sell them. You know, it's like, how cynical can you get?
But is it art?
But is it art? Yeah. And it's like, well, if anything with my name on it's going to sell, then I'll put it to the test. There you are. Have that, you know. Yeah, if you sort of... if you sort of are cynical enough about how the process kind of works.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I may have mentioned this on another occasion, but did I ever tell you about my magnificent plan for winning the Turner Prize?
No.
Did I ever?
I don't think you did.
Okay.
If you did, I forgot.
This
couldn't have been very interesting.
This was my amazing plan for winning the Turner Prize, because I think at the time, like, there'd been, there was a lot of publicity about it and stuff, and Tracy Emin's bed and whatnot, and Damien Hirst with the shark in the tank and things. Well, my idea was as follows: I was going to send a stamped addressed envelope, obviously my address on it, with a covering letter. And the covering letter was going to read as follows. It was going to say, "I'm not even going to bother turning up. Send me the money, you bastards." With a stamped addressed envelope for them to put the cheque in and send it to me.
At this point, it's worth a try.
Why not? I told my dad about this, by the way. Do you know what he actually said?
What did he say?
He went, "Well, they're not going to send you any money, are they, Simon, if you..."
Do you think?
I was like, it's not really the point I'm going for at this point. I'm kind of going for how ridiculous the whole thing is anyway. I wouldn't expect them to send me... I mean, if they do, then great, but... Then again,
that'd be nice.
Maybe they'd admire my barefaced cheek, I don't know, if these people are quite sort of cynical enough to shock value anyway, and I provide them with a bit of amusement, then maybe they'll decide it's worth whatever. I don't know, the whole thing of... You studied art, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, on the course that you did you ever sort of like do anything about but what is art or something?
Not really.
Not. So we never sort of... Because you've done a bit about conceptual art and stuff, haven't you? Marcel Duchamp and stuff.
Yeah, we had a little talk about Dadaism and so on.
Yeah. But, yeah.
No, we didn't really go into much detail about that kind of, the philosophy of art.
I mean, to be fair, I imagine with stuff like that you could probably do a degree level course on it.
You probably could, yeah.
And probably still not be any the
wiser
as to what it is. I did hear actually of a case.
People have.
Yeah, indeed.
And we still don't know.
I did hear actually of a case where a guy was an art student, and he'd basically had this piece of work to hand in, and he'd not done anything, and so the night before he was due to hand it in, he basically enlisted the help of some friends. And what they basically did was they got the entire content of his university room and basically put it onto the lawn outside the art department. And then they got like a piece of like tape, like on a crime scene, and basically did like a body outline on the floor. And the piece was called "I Hate Deadlines." And it was as if basically the pressure of kind of thingy off. I know. I don't know whether it got a good grade or not, but that was his idea,
He must have some very accommodating friends.
Yeah, but they managed to move all this sort of stuff.
Wish I had friends like that.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's a lot of effort, really.
You wouldn't do that for me, would you?
I have to say, I don't think I'd do it for anyone. Actually, I don't think I'd even do it for me.
Nah.
I mean, even if it was like literally just across the camp, just directly across the quadrangle or something, I'm not sure I'd do that. But you'd like to think in a way you got a good grade for it, wouldn't you?
You'd hope. You'd hope.
Because it's quite an imaginative response, if nothing else. But yeah, I did read somewhere that. I forget which album it was, but there was an album by one of the sort of punk or post-punk bands, and apparently early vinyl pressings that they did of it back at the time, they actually came in these like, record sleeves. And on the inside of the record sleeves, they'd actually put sandpaper.
Right.
So when you pulled this out, it would scratch the record and it would be unplayable.
Really?
Yeah. And it was like a sort of art school kind of joke kind of thing. Like, you know, well done, you've just bought an unplayable record.
Oh, like that picture that Banksy did that shredded itself
Yes.
when it was bought.
Similar kind of concept, yeah. And the ironic thing is now, apparently, if you've got one of these things, they're worth a fortune. Because, like, most people, you know... Chucked them, yeah.
What you'd have to do was just carefully unpeel it.
Yes. Yeah, in order to sort of extricate them. Are you familiar with Derek and Clive?
No.
Dudley Moore and Peter Cook?
Oh, yes.
The foul-mouthed personas they have.
Yes.
Should I listen?
I'm fine.
Sure. Well...
Thirsty little plant.
I'm a thirsty little plant, I've said this before. But the interesting thing about that was they... I mean, it's very, very foul-mouthed and it's very offensive. Like the stuff they did, very funny. But they literally did a sort of... A lot of it was very improvisational. They just sort of get drunk and just ramble, basically. A bit like we're doing, except we're not drunk. We don't have the excuse.
We're just here.
But they literally did a one of their sort of albums that they released. There's a track called "You Stupid Bleep," basically, and it's literally them going, "You stupid bleep," and he's like, "You've just bought this album. You're expecting there to be jokes and stuff on it, and there's not any bloody jokes on it at all. You just wasted your money, aren't you? Huh? You stupid bleep." And it's like, you're going to play this now, aren't you? And there's going to be nothing on it at all. There's going to be silence. You stupid. And it's just them basically mocking this audience basically for 2 or 3 minutes. You know, like, you're expecting this and you're not going to get any of it at all. So, kind of thing, you know.
Oh, I just had a little message saying we're down to 10% battery.
We're down to 10% battery. Oh, okay.
Well, the phone is.
Yes. Does that mean the machine itself is revolting against us?
It sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I cast off your self-indulgent nonsense. You're not doing this for 5 hours again. 4 hours again. I mean, in fairness, right, if 30-something people watched a 4-hour video, or they didn't watch the full thing, but they watched... Does that mean that if this is half as long, we might get twice the number of viewers?
Do you think so? Do you think it works like that?
My maths is a bit shaky. It's never my strong point.
It was the first one we did. You sent it to somebody who's got a sort of fairly active page, didn't you?
Yes,
and that got 200 and something views.
Yeah, it did actually, to be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should do that again.
I should. So here you are.
I need 10,000 viewers.
10,000. Actually, that's a good point. How many people do you need to actually get a career out of YouTube?
Well, you start earning money at 10,000.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, and it depends a lot on how many people actually watch your videos after that.
Right, okay. So 10,000 is kind of the magic spot, probably.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how much you get per view or anything like that.
Because I remember seeing a thing about it, and it was sort of saying, I think there's only like a relatively small amount of the videos that sort of actually, content creators actually make a living out of it, aren't there, I think. But then again, it's a bit like publishing, though, to be fair, isn't it? Because, you know, there are lots and lots of people who self-publish books, but doesn't mean they actually make any money out of them. In a lot of cases, you know, they spend more money self-publishing it than they would do in sales or whatever. But there you are. So, do you think, have we sufficiently entertained, do you think?
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Hope so.
So we've been very entertaining.
Yeah, the phone's had enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, made my charging cable's upstairs.
Yeah. Phone's like, I don't want to record anymore. This is just absolute bilge. I mean, at the beginning...
You're tired, go to bed.
At the beginning of the video it was bad enough, and then it just got worse and worse.
No, I think it started quite well, you know.
Yeah.
We were talking about the Bible, weren't we?
Yeah.
And literature.
I think, you know, for the most part, I think we've been reasonably coherent, I think, most of the time.
I think we're getting a little bit tired now.
Yeah, it started to get a little bit tired. There's that famous footage, isn't there, of Pink Floyd being asked, I think they're recording one of their albums, about whether or not they're sort of happy with stuff. And they're obviously very stoned, basically, and they're all, are you happy with the way things are going? What do you mean by happy? But with the way things are going, what do you mean by going?
One of my managers asked me the other day, how are you getting on, tidying up? And I said, well, the wheels on the bus are going round and round. And she said, well, what does that mean? I think when you get to the point you're actually discussing whether or not it's time to turn the video off, it's time to turn the video off, isn't it?
Probably, yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm not making any moves to do it, though.
No. Arm isn't long enough.
Oh, dear.
Can't reach.
I know.
Maybe you could get your cat to do it for us.
What do you think so? Zebedee. Zeb. We need a favour.
At least he's looking at you,
He's not...
he's not responding.
He's not responding, no. He's very busy doing cat business.
Yeah, he's busy sort of grooming his coat.
Cat business.
Yeah. Yeah? Yeah. Should we make a move?
Let's turn it off. It'll turn itself off in a minute if we don't.
When the battery shrinks to...
Yes.
Is there like a minimal function level there?
Yeah.
But when it hits 5% or something, it suddenly...
Zero, when it gets to 1.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't cut out till it gets to 1.
Doesn't cut out till it gets to 1.
I don't know if it's got an extra bit that he doesn't tell you about.
Extra tank or something. It's like, I'm not doing this anymore. I've already recorded enough of your bilge. I seriously think there should be more scope for people to have newspaper columns. I mean, they're a bit old-fashioned these days, aren't they, newspaper columns? But I just think there's so much complete rubbish written in newspaper columns. Why can't they give more people a slice of the cake?
Yeah.
I could write complete hogwash every week for one of them.
I could tell people what I've been thinking.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Regardless of whether it's interesting or useful or whatever. I'll happily do that.
Yeah, give me some money, I'll write your thingy.
Give me some money. You're going to have to turn it off, I'm afraid.
Do you think so?
So the final few minutes of the video are just going to be like debating whether or not to turn off the video. It's quite postmodern, that, isn't it?
It is indeed. I'm sure there's I'm sure it means something.
The video is considering its own mortality. Bloody hell, I must be sleep deprived. Although I don't feel as sleep deprived as I did last time, I have to say. Last time it was like... Oh.
It is midnight.
Yeah, okay. That's a bit late. Although last time I think it was about 1 o'clock in the morning.
I can't even remember what time it was.
No, I can't either. I was starting to get twingly feelings at the back of my eye, I remember that. And I thought, oh, this isn't good.
My eyes want to be closed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm going to do?
What?
I'm going to turn it off.
Yay!